Okay, so today we're going to talk about the rock cycle, and our focus question is what are the key processes in the formation of rocks? So there's three different types of rocks. There's igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary, which we touched on last week when we started talking about rocks being made from minerals. And if we look at a picture of the cycle, the rock cycle, because we know that rocks go through a cycle where they can change into different types of rocks. Let's start with this magma over on the right side. If we have magma and it cools, coming up from the mantle, it forms igneous rock. Once it's igneous rock, a few different things can happen. It can either melt and become magma again. It can have heat and pressure applied to it and become a metamorphic rock, or it can undergo weathering and erosion. So these are three of the processes that we're going to talk about. So one thing I want you to notice when looking at this cycle is that anything that points to melting shows magma. Anything that points to heat and pressure shows metamorphic rock. And anything that shows weathering and erosion leads to sediment, which then leads to sedimentary rock. So let's say that this igneous rock undergoes this weathering and erosion. It uplifts towards the surface of the earth and weathering and erosion occur. Sediment then is formed in layers and layers of sediment. And in between those layers, if organisms die or get trapped, this is how fossils are formed. So after all this weathering and erosion occurs, and we have these layers of sediments, they undergo compacting and cementing, and this is how sedimentary rock is formed. So in this compaction and cementing, there's a lot of pressure being pushed down on these rocks, and then all these sediments kind of mold together to form these rocks. After it becomes a sedimentary rock, it could either undergo weathering and erosion and become sediment again, or it can undergo heat and pressure, and we know that heat and pressure is associated with metamorphic rock. Once it's a metamorphic rock, there's a few different routes it can also go. Either weathering and erosion can occur and it can become sediment, just like any other rock when weathering and erosion occurs. Or the metamorphic rock, if it's close enough to the mantle, can melt and become part of the magma again within that mantle. So when you look at this cycle, what I want you to notice is that both of the arrows, the blue and the red, that have melting lead to igneous rock. Both that have erosion and deposition, or this weathering, lead to sedimentary, and both that have temperature and pressure lead to this metamorphic rock. So one thing to notice is that there's different processes that are associated with the formation of each type of rock. So once again, in another picture, we have igneous rock that's being weathered or eroded, and sediments occur. Now, if you'll notice these green arrows with weathering and erosion, and I know this is a little bit difficult to see, all lead to these sediments. Now, this purple arrow, once they're sediments, represents compaction and cementation. And now you'll notice that there's two yellow arrows pointing to the metamorphic rock. These both represent heat and pressure because we know heat and pressure are what form metamorphic rock. And then we have these orange arrows that represent melting to the magma. And anytime melting occurs, we know that it's melting back into that mantle and becoming magma. And then in order to form that igneous rock, the only way to form it is by cooling the magma. So just to show you again in a picture that shows you how things happen in the earth, one thing to notice is that anything leading to the sedimentary rock, to the metamorphic rock, has heat and pressure next to the arrow. If igneous and metamorphic rocks are uplifted to the surface as new rock forms and erosion occurs at the top, this is how this transportation, and what they mean by transportation is weathering and erosion. And the erosion part is this transportation because we know erosion takes place when sediments are moved. Now this sediment is being buried and pressure is being put on it, and we have this compaction and cementation, and that is how our sedimentary rocks form. And you can see the multiple layers within the sedimentary rocks. Now, as sedimentary rocks, new ones form on top of it, and these sink towards the bottom. Anything leading to this magma is showing melting occurring, where now we have a whole lot of heat and the rock is actually melting. Go ahead and move on to your worksheet for today. Once you've completed that, look for a video to watch on the website.